Today we're going to show you how to replace a solenoid on a BC8, 15 or 25. The same solenoids that you see here are used on the BC 3.5 and 5. And what we've got here is somebody that did the gas install, and granted it was a gas tech, but they don't always follow the rules. They bored into the instead of using the 1/2 inch brass union that we provide and then using the flexible pipe, they bored in directly with some black piping into the solenoid, and not only did they damage the solenoid, they also loosened it. I don't know if you can see, it's so super loose that gas leaked out of the where it connects right here. This has got to be tight and also you got to have it sealed with, which it was, sealed with yellow tape, and you can also use leak lock or what have you. So we're going to remove this solenoid and we're going to replace it, and we're going to show you how to do that. It's pretty easy to do on a BC8, 15 and 25, because you just loosen these 6 screws. Don't remove them, just loosen them, and then the lift up on the panel and it is completely removed, and you can see where the solenoid wires come through, and then it's really easy to track them down and replace it. We'll show you in just a minute. So if you follow the wiring as it comes in from the solenoid through the hole here, you can see that black tape, heat tape, was put on that. And what we're going to do is we're going to snip these little tie cables off, and then we can access the wiring a lot better, and then we'll just put new ones on when we get to that point. Just make sure when you snip them off you don't snip the wires. So now that we've snipped the wires, we can see how these come through, and so what we're going to do is just snip it off before it comes to the connectors, because we're going to replace the connectors anyway, but we just want to make sure we're going into the right connectors. And the key with these solenoids is it doesn't matter which wire goes to which. They're not polarized, so the wires can go to either one. But now we're going to physically remove the solenoid from the roaster. So we're going to pull the wiring out that we just snipped, and normally you would use a wrench to loosen this, but since our natural gas installer guy, whoever it was, totally loosened this before he hooked it in, we're just going to completely unscrew it by hand and remove it. And then we want to make sure we completely get off any of the old sealant, or in this case the old yellow tape, and then we're going to get ready to put the new one on, and we're going to put some new yellow gas tape on this, and then we like to use leak lock to even give it a more secure fit, and so there won't be any leaking at all. You might find it helpful, once you've got that gas and the sealant off, just to go over it with a nylon brush, nothing metal so it doesn't damage the threads, but just to make sure they're clean. And then you're going to want to apply a layer of yellow gas tape. They put on a layer of the yellow tape, run it around so it's nice and tight, and make sure that when you come to the end you don't have any sticking out to where it could impede the flow of the gas. And then once you get that nice and tight, then you're ready to put on some, we like to use leak lock. It's a great sealer. It is basically pipe joint compound, but the beauty of it is it does come to does harden a little bit once it cures. So we just put a layer on, not massive amounts, but a solid bead around, so that when the pipe, or when in this case the solenoid, is put back on, it basically forms a gasket which will seal from any potential leaks. So now we're going to take our solenoid valve and install it, and then once we install it, depending on whether you're setting it up for natural gas or propane, will determine what size brass union you use. This is the brass union with the 1/2 inch, which would go with a natural gas, and then you would use a flexible pipe like this after you install it into the solenoid, and that would hook up into your gas line, which would be either a 1/2 inch or 3/4, depending on the BTU that you need and what the gas tech recommends. So basically we just take our solenoid, and as soon as we get this installed physically, we're going to run, like there was, you don't have to, but we're going to run some of that heat tape through the wiring, just so that it's uniform before we put it through the hole. But basically right now you just have to make sure that you follow the arrow of the direction that it's supposed to go in. So that's telling you it goes in, and to help you, the wiring on the solenoid is pointing toward where the inside is on the or where in the direction where the roaster is. So carefully thread that in there and tighten it nice and tight to where it doesn't do what we saw it was doing at the outset with the person who improperly installed it in the roaster when they converted it. And you got to turn it to where the solenoid is upright. So you'll want to be careful how you do that final tightening. In this case, because it tightened somewhat down, we're going to hold the pipe and use a pipe wrench to gently move it so it's upright. So now you can see we've got it upright. It's very tight. It's not going to move at all. Might need to tighten these connectors, or these two screws, so that there's no movement in the pipe. But then we're going to run some heat tape through that, blow it with some heat gun so that it seals it nice. Then we're going to run it through the hole. And you can buy heat tape in the smaller pieces like this, or you can buy it in a rolled where it's much longer. We only need a couple inches to get it from here to the inside, because that's really all we're trying to do, is protect it so that the two wires will appear as one, and there won't be any chance of one of them being snagged if somebody's doing something behind the machine. So you basically, if you've never done heat, these heat sealant, is you just pull it through, wire, take it where you want it to go, and then you'll take a heat gun and just heat it to where it shrinks up, and then we can put the wire through. As I said, you don't have to use this heat shrink wire wrap, as they call it. We just like to do that. You don't have to do that, but as you can see, I'm using a heat gun and just get it close enough, and not too hot, but you can see it'll shrink them together. So now it's basically shrunk to where, and especially on the ends, where it'll nicely slide through the hole there, and won't have anything that could possibly snag those wires in the future. So now what we're going to do is we're going to snip the old wires off before where their wire nuts were, and Then we'll get them ready, thread them, and then we're going to use, in this case, wire nuts or wire screw nuts or whatever you want to call them to connect that. There's all kinds of fancy stuff. Here's another one, lever nuts, which are really nice too, but we're not going to get that fancy on these. And then we'll put the excess wiring folded up like it was before and put a couple of these cable ties onto the pipe to hold everything in place so nothing's loose to where there could potentially be a snag on a wire and break it. So now that we've run that wire through, we're going to snip off the old wires in front of the wire nuts that they have. Then we'll use this tool to get some direct wires here, get the insulation off, and then we will connect it to the two wires. And as I mentioned, they are not, this is not polarized, so it doesn't matter which wire goes on which. So we're gonna take wire nuts in this case. As I've mentioned in the past, there's other connectors that are fancier, but the wire nuts work just fine. You can tighten it down. Some people will go ahead after they tighten it down, run a little electrical tape over it, or that liquid electrical tape, whatever you feel comfortable doing. Some people like using these lever nuts, which are nice. They're a little bit more expensive, but they're fancy and they do a great job as well. In this case, we feel these are going to be adequate, and we're going to get them nice and tight, and then tighten up these, and we're going to go ahead and put a drop or two of liquid electrical tape into that, and then we're going to basically fold the wires all back together like they were, and put a couple of these nylon ties on it to hold everything nicely in place. If you've never used liquid electrical tape, it comes in, I think, red, black, and white. It's a great product, especially when it's hard to get to spots, or you'd like to seek it into places where you wouldn't be able to get tape to go into, and then when it dries it makes a nice solid seal. But yeah, so it's real easy to use. We love it. We use it all the time for different things, but whatever you decide to use is fine, or you don't even have to use it with those nuts as well, those wire nuts. Okay, so we installed the cable ties. Now we're just going to snip them. Be sure we snip them close, but not to where we snip a wire. And we should be all good on the electronic part of the deal. And we just need to put in our brass union and then give everything a test. Just a note on the brass union. The one that comes with the original solenoid installed is this particular little adapter piece that you'll need to take out of the old one and put in the new solenoid. If you're not changing the gas settings, you can just take that out completely, and then you can run some yellow gas tape on it and some leak lock, and then screw that into your solenoid, and you're ready to go. And like I said, if you're using propane, you're using a 3/8 of an inch brass union. If you're converting it to natural gas, you would replace that 3/8 with a 1/2 inch, and then use that flexible pipe that we talked about. And then when you're done, you're ready to go.